Hello, and welcome to this Educo Life Sciences trainer interview where we spoke to our expert CMC trainer, Raz Eliav. In the interview, we discussed CMC development and the main challenges you will face during development. Raz also provides some useful advice for those starting out in CMC to help you in your role. We hope you find the interview useful, and if you want to stay up to date with the latest Educo free interviews, trainer interviews, free Module 1 training sessions, and all of our upcoming courses, then subscribe on our website. Thank you and enjoy.
First of all, development implies that we're talking about drug development. So we are sort of in the years where we are actually doing the effort of finding new drugs and proving that they're safe and effective, as opposed to speaking of, the pharma industry as a whole, where we have a whole lot of other people working on commercial drugs in the pharmacy that we all know very well. So the field of drug development is about finding those new drugs, and what usually gets most of the attention is the clinical development. So we all know about clinical trials and animal studies that precede them, where we basically prove that this new potential drug is safe and effective. But what usually happens behind the scenes is that we need to somehow manufacture this drug. And as we all know and take it for granted, drugs are very high quality. So when you buy a pill in the pharmacy, you take it for granted that it's safe for you, or at least that you know what side effects to expect. You know what it's going to do. You know its intended effect, and you trust that no matter when you buy it, you know that it's more or less the same thing. So we take that for granted, but what happens behind the scenes is that it takes many years to develop the manufacturing process of a drug and the way we control its quality, and that is what we call CMC development. So basically, as the project begins, even as early as the first animal studies, we already start establishing this manufacturing process and controlling the high quality that we're expecting of this drug, because that will basically be the basis for us later on to commercially manufacture this drug and produce it for market supply. So CMC development, in essence, is this parallel track to clinical development where people are in charge of developing the manufacturing process and also to provide material for those clinical trials that I mentioned. So first, we must understand that very few people actually work in CMC development. It's usually some way or another an entry-level job into this field. So it could be that you work in a QC lab in quality controls, or it could be that you're in the manufacturing floor of a company that makes a drug, or it could be that you're a scientist in a development team. But it's never the title CMC is a bit vague to many people, because CMC is really an umbrella term that covers many different aspects and many potential career paths and jobs a bit higher up. So when we look at second, third jobs, then you do see more titles that bear the word CMC. So you would have CMC project managers and CMC specialists in quality assurance and regulatory affairs. But really, when you start out, you usually are in one of the entry-level jobs of the industry. And I think that the main challenge is really this huge gap between what you learned in university, which for many of us is something in the life sciences field or chemistry or any of the, let's say, the wet scientific arenas. And we learn the basic science, and we learn the very important principles, even if we learn engineering. For example, I studied biotechnology engineering, and I learned of the ins and outs of the engineering and the concepts behind them. But still, once you're out to the industry on your first day, you are swamped with a new language. Okay, so everyone is basically throwing different acronyms at you. CMC, like I've never heard the word CMC before I went to the industry, and and really many of the topics that are the day to day of the pharma industry and of drug development are not directly relevant or taught in your university studies. Now, so you enter this place, everything is very fast paced, especially if you work in a startup. But even if you're working in a bigger company, things usually move very fast, and your colleagues are usually quite busy. So they're probably not going to be able to sit down and teach you properly whatever there is to know. So what happens to most people is that they just learn by doing, and it's a great way to learn, of course. And I learned this way, and everyone will continue to learn this way no matter what we do. But I think that the lack of having the big picture in mind and really understanding how the dots connect just make it a bit more challenging to sort of go through the day-to-day activities. So yeah, I would say those are the main challenges, but of course there are probably many more. First and foremost, be ready to learn and learn a lot. So if you thought that your studies end when you finish university, and I hope that it's not a disappointment for you, but you will continue to learn, and the learning curve is just going up now, and you really there is many new things that you will learn. By the way, not only because you're new to the industry, but simply because you're new to this project that you just landed. So if it's your first job or even your second or third job, or actually at any point in your career, whenever you land a new project, it's going to be a new type of product, a new group of people, a new company, a different stage of development. Okay, so what I mentioned before, clinical development can take, well, 10, 15 years sometimes. So each stage of the way looks different. So you almost never land the same situation twice. So you must be ready for a career that is very intensive in learning all the time. Now, as I said before, I think that for me at least, the most helpful thing is to try and see the big picture. Okay, so even if I'm joining a project as just a tiny ant, moving my piece of sand from one place to the other, investing the first few days, weeks to sort of see the big picture, talk with people from other departments, read about the company, read about the drug, read literature, just be as wholesome as possible with your understanding, not only of your specific focus area. That would make you, first of all, much more passionate about what you do, so you understand what your tiny piece means with this big puzzle. And it's going to help also make you a much more valuable team member, because we're all smart people and we can always contribute to other people with our unique perspective. So I think that seeing the big picture and at least trying is very helpful. Now a bit more, let's say, focused advice maybe would be to look up some newsletters in the field. There is a lot of content and material, that speaks more generally about different aspects of our industry. So make yourself a habit of reading those newsletters. Of course, maybe I should have said it first, but there are the regulatory guidelines. So the regulatory authorities that are involved in this entire story, they publish huge amounts of content to basically teach the industry what they're expecting of them. Okay, so I'm not talking about reading the actual code of law, which is very difficult and vague to understand. The FDA, the European authorities, almost all authorities publish guidelines written in native language that is usually easy to understand. Not always you understand the full thing, obviously, especially if you're just starting out, but just getting the gist of what's going on and what is the regulatory framework is very helpful, again, for you to connect the dots with your piece of the story. So look up FDA guidelines, ICH. ICH is a very important source of guidelines to read. You know, make a habit of just reading, let's say, one guideline a week, and after your first year, you will be very well educated. Of course, you can follow professionals on LinkedIn. Many people, myself included, regularly post content, reflections, advice, bringing up this new guideline that just came up with this short commentary. So it's really useful to expand your network of professionals that you follow their content on LinkedIn, and that's also part of your learning habit. And I would say that, try to make yourself, that's general career advice, actually it works for anything that you do in life, but pharma is no different. Just make yourself valuable to whatever job you land. Do 10% more than what you're expected to do. Learn of things outside of your immediate scope of work, and today there's so many resources out there that there is no excuse for not doing it. And I would say last would be to, and especially, if we're talking about people at the beginning of their career, so they hold the advantage of being very natural with technology. Okay, so I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to have grown up with less technology than today. And I think that people that are graduating today have already used in their semi-professional life during university some of the advanced tools today, obviously ChatGPT and other LLMs, and even just computer literacy in general is much higher for the younger generations. So I think that harnessing these advanced tools in creative ways and sort of moving forward the digital revolution, you might think that it's all top down. So you would enter a company and they would present to you their digital tools, but you'd be surprised how far behind pharma is with regards to adopting digital technologies. And what we see in many places is that the transition is really happening bottom up. So people bring their own digital skills, their own digital capabilities, and that's part of what I said of becoming a more useful team member, is that you can bring in new spirits and new tools to really improve everyone's lives. Many people arrive to the industry after having graduated from sometimes very advanced careers, even PhD studies. So we're talking about people that have been in the academy for many years. Some of them have publications. They are used to public speaking and going to conferences and being very relatively important in what they do, and feeling a lot of sense of meaning in their day-to-day life. And then they suddenly find themselves in an entry-level job in the industry. Sometimes they're low paying, okay, and very hard. So it could be working shifts, or it could be, again, very fast paced, very different from their academic life. So for many, it's a culture shock to the point that they run away. They're like, okay, pharma is terrible. I don't want to work there. Because again, it's hard to see the big picture in that day to day when you have now an assignment to, I don't know, run 15 experiments of almost exactly the same thing for 2 weeks now, and then having to sit down and writing reports with templates and just filling in Excel sheets, and a lot of the aspects, especially early on, but also later on, are mundane and technical and gray. And yeah, some people come from the academy with some fatigue from hands-on work, so they swear they don't want to touch a pipette ever again, and they think that working with the computer is much more fun. But then they find that it can also be mundane, and sitting all day long after being used to working with your hands is also a challenge to adapt. And sometimes the opposite, by the way. Some people are so passionate about their hands-on work that they never want to stop doing that. But then they realize that even if they find a hands-on work, they still have many other stuff to do. So they need to fill out forms and results and sign and review things. And it's inevitable that you're entering a very different mindset from what you had in the academy. It's a shift, and it's a challenge to sometimes shift gears. But again, I think it's helpful to see the big picture, to understand where this career path is taking you. Yeah, so maybe you're facing now 2-3 years of slightly less interesting job, but hey, the experience you will gain, the knowledge that you will gain here will be very valuable in that thing you really want to do later down the road. So it's worth hanging on these difficult years, because I'm not objective, but I think that there are a lot of very exciting things to do in the industry. The CMC Essentials training course was built with people at the beginning of their career path in mind. So the idea is to really, on one hand, teach the basic language and know what there is to know, so to speak. But the special thing about the CMC Essentials training course is that it's a very wide overview. So whatever it is that you're doing in your first role, or what you're intending to do, it's probably going to be just a small part of the course. And really what we're going to do is to touch upon all the topics in CMC from beginning to end, without going too much into detail. Okay, so the intention again is to give you a broad overview, to work more on the connections between things and on the language that is that you will encounter eventually. So you would sit in a group meeting and you are part of the quality controls team, and you would hear things from the process engineers and have a better understanding of what they're doing and what their life is about. Okay. So again, this connects back to seeing the big picture and becoming a more useful team member. So it's always good to know what the person from across the hall is doing, and this will help you understand, as I said, what there is to know, what questions to ask, what is relevant in your work to them, and as a side effect, you would also probably be able to better decide what you want to do when you grow up in the field. So basically, we all start somewhere in a tiny spot, and we don't know exactly where our career is headed. So by understanding what other people do, we might find out that yes, there is this thing I'm probably going to be passionate about, and even if I'm not there today, I at least know where to direct my effort, where to direct my curiosity, where to direct my next career moves, so that in 5-10 years from now, I will be in the point that I'm most passionate about. And really, the industry is so diverse. So really, everyone can find their sweet spot, doing what they love most, be it hands-on work or more language work, or knowledge work. It's really diverse. We do many different things, and there are many different options for different kinds of people.